What's going on, people? Christopher O'Toole here with you guys today, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I took that B-roll sequence a little bit beforehand with an iPhone, okay? Now, this isn't just any iPhone. This is a iPhone 5S, okay? Ancient, Stone Age iPhone, okay? Not really, but, you know. Now, I could have taken this B-roll with, say, an iPhone 11 Pro, but the reason why I wanted to take it with an iPhone 5S is because it would be harder. Quite literally, the reason I wanted to take it with this iPhone 5S is because it would be harder. And when you go out on a camera shoot and either say you're traveling and you don't have the room to take all of your gear with you, just all of your expansive load of gear that you'd want to take, and so you're forced to use not as good tools, then you need to be able to learn how to use those not as good tools and produce just as good quality content. And it's not necessarily even when you're traveling, and maybe you're going to a certain shoot and you're shooting with their tools and they don't have as good tools as you do, or they have different ones. And so you need to learn how to shoot with not as good tools so that you'll know how to do it whenever you go into a different project or whatever. But specifically in this video, we are going to be talking about shooting with an old iPhone. Like, really old. When did the iPhone 5S come out? I don't know. In order to make your iPhone footage, specifically your old iPhone footage, look cinematic, first off, you need to shoot it cinematically, okay? And shooting it cinematically can be split up into so many parts, but just to name a few is depth of field and cinematic movement. Now, you may have seen videos on cinematic movement. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Depth of field. Now, depth of field and kind of focus are a little bit intertwined, so I'll be talking about both here. But the depth of field isn't as good as normal cameras, okay? You can't adjust the aperture on your iPhone 5S, okay? That's not possible. So you had to deal with the depth of field that you had. And the depth of field wasn't really that great, okay? It didn't have really high depth of field. Now, focusing was also very hard. Now, I'm sure focusing on the newer iPhones is a bit better since they are pointed a little bit more towards cinematography instead of just taking a video with your phone to put on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. They're more geared towards photography, and so their focus is probably a lot better. The iPhone 5S the focus wasn't really good. And by the way, when I'm saying all this stuff, the iPhone 5S isn't horrible, okay? It shoots 1080p 30, and yeah, it is bad quality, but when it came out, commercials were shot in the iPhone 5S, so I mean, while it isn't as good as a camera, you could definitely go better for pretty cheap. If it's what you have with you, don't be shy of using it. Don't not get the shot because it's not going to be very good just because you have an iPhone 5S. But back to focusing, when I shot with it, I learned that you couldn't really focus on a small subject. Okay, go into focus and go back out of focus, because I guess what the iPhone 5S tries to do is it tries to focus on the bigger picture. Okay, that also may be why it has less depth of field and higher aperture, because it wants to focus on the bigger picture. I'm not sure. That's just my thoughts on the issue. It's not the official, Apple website doesn't say that I know of or anything like that. I'm just saying that, because I learned that it doesn't like to focus on small objects. And so in basically shots like this, where I would have liked to pull the camera back just a little bit to show a lot bigger picture, but then focus on the leaves, well, I couldn't do that. I had to then settle for less, and then I had to go and zoom in a little bit more, and then, since the leaf was bigger on the image, then focus on the leaf. So that was one of the troubles that I ran into when dealing with focus on the iPhone 5S. And now, like I said at the beginning of the video, you're shooting on a different set, and you're using gear that's less quality than you're used to using. You have to figure out these types of things, and to be able to produce, the same quality image that you would have. And while you may not be able to shoot the exact thing that you had in mind while on the shoot, still finding out how you can shoot a certain thing instead of just giving up and shooting something completely different will definitely be better for you and for your client, whoever you're shooting for. Now, to shoot this video, I shot in 30 frames per second because, of course, it'll shoot in 30 frames per second or 720 and 120 frames per second, but I shot in 30 frames per second, and then I slowed it down to 24. That way you have a lot smoother movement. 30 frames per second is maybe a little bit jerky. When you slow that down to 80% of that to 24 frames per second, then the movement will be a lot smoother. And this isn't a must. That's just something I did because I figured it may be smoother. Yeah, just, whatever. Now, something I mentioned earlier was cinematic movement. Now, I tried to fix cinematic movement as best as possible. Now, as I said earlier, you may have seen videos on how to shoot cinematic movement and put cinematic movement into your video. And so that's something I try to do with this. Now, as I've said in previous videos, namely that one right there. Cinematic movement is moving your camera in B-roll shots is very helpful, and it will really help pull across a feeling in your video, no matter what type of feeling that's meant to be. And so putting that cinematic movement in will really help it. And so that's what I tried to do with this. Now, of course, the iPhone can go in different, smaller places than say a big cinema camera could. But still, at the same time, with shooting cinematic movement, the iPhone, since it doesn't really have stabilization, or at least I don't think it does. It doesn't have good one if it doesn't have good stabilization if it does. But since it doesn't have very good stabilization, I didn't try to move it too much, because then if I moved it too much, the focus would go out, and I would move the camera too far one way, and so it wouldn't focus on the correct thing. And so that was a problem that I had to deal with as well when shooting with the iPhone 5S. Now, probably newer iPhones have a lot better stabilization. They may even have stabilization. Again, I don't even know if the iPhone 5S does. I'll try to look it up before I finish editing this video, but And so shooting cinematic movement with this video was one of the things I tried to do. Now on to the very last section of this video was in post, and I color graded this shot to look to bring across a certain feel to it. Now, when color grading iPhone footage, personally, I don't think Apple has the best color space in the world, and so when you're shooting with, say, an iPhone, it will be a little bit harder, since especially older ones don't have as high quality video. Now, I know other phones even shoot in log. The iPhone 5S, of course, doesn't have the log capability, so color grading was a little bit harder. Now, it wasn't impossible. I didn't, pull off the impossible, although I would have liked to do that, but I just didn't do it, But I tried to color grade as well as possible. Of course, it isn't perfect, because, again, this is iPhone footage. This isn't some cinema camera footage or even DSLR footage that would have a lot higher quality, and you could work with it a lot more. I can shoot in picture profiles, log, RAW, definitely. That would be cool. Phone shooting in RAW, it'd fill up the storage really fast that way too, though. So, and then, of course, last of all, once I finished the color grade, slap those good old widescreen bars on the top and bottom to give it that little extra feel of cinematic look for the B-roll, which is probably overused. I'd prefer just shooting and editing in widescreen instead of slapping widescreen bars on top of it. But, of course, it was a little bit wider than this video is put in, and so I just had to put widescreen bars on the top and bottom so it would fit this video. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys in a number of ways. I hope you guys will now think of ways to push yourself, and think of ways around the current situation that you're in if you're not used to shooting in that, and thinking of different ways to shoot better with gear that may not be less quality than the gear that you have, but just is different, so you're not used to different things. Say you're used to shooting with a full frame camera, and then you go down to a micro four thirds, which of course has completely different depth of field, with different zooms and different things of that nature than with a full frame camera, or even you're shooting with a crop sensor. And so learning to deal with all these different situations, whichever side of the scale they are, of course, full frames in the center, and then crop sensor and micro four thirds, full frames the best, of course. Always remember that. And so I hope this helped to learn to use whatever features you have with what you're shooting on to the best of your ability. And so I hope this video helped you in that way. If you like this video, click that like button down below. If you have any questions or comments, just comment on somebody else's video. Just don't drop them in the comments below. There you go. Kind of tired of saying that, And subscribe for more videos on photography and cinematography, and I will see you guys in the next video. You still hopefully will be able to shoot. You still will videos on how to shoot. How to shoot cinematic movement. How to put cinematic movement into your video. Man, how do you say that?